All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're looking at a theory that, honestly, sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, but it's being seriously talked about in the world of theoretical physics. We're talking about the Dedoxinite framework, a radical new idea that tries to connect two of the absolute biggest mysteries in all of science, the weird, wild world of quantum mechanics and consciousness itself.
So the whole thing kicks off with this massive question you see right here. It's asking us to think about something pretty wild. What if consciousness isn't just something that happens in the universe? What if it's not just a passenger along for the ride? What if it's actually one of the authors, actively helping to write the very rules of reality as we go?
At the heart of it all, the framework is trying to tackle two enormous unsolved problems. On one side, you've got the quantum measurement problem. Why does a particle exist in a hazy cloud of possibilities until we measure it, and then suddenly it picks just one spot? It's bizarre. And on the other side, you have the hard problem of consciousness. Why do all the electrical and chemical signals in our brain create this rich, subjective inner movie? We can see the brain working, but we can't explain the feeling of it all.
Okay, so here's the game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with those two big mysteries. Then we'll really unpack what the Dedoxinite framework is all about. We'll get into its wild idea of hidden layers of reality, see how scientists think they could actually test this stuff, and then, just casually explore what it could all mean for the future of everything.
So let's just set the stage really quickly. In the physics corner, we've got quantum mechanics. A particle can be in a whole bunch of places at once. It's a blur of potential, until an observer looks and poof, it snaps into one single definite location. It's almost like reality waits for us to pay attention. And in the other corner, you've got this deep mystery of qualia. That's the fancy term for the raw feeling of experience. The redness of red, the taste of chocolate. We just can't explain how the physical brain produces the experience itself.
And this is where the Dedoxinite framework makes its big, bold move. It basically says, hey, what if we've been looking at this all wrong? What if these aren't two completely separate, impossible problems? What if they're actually two sides of the very same coin? The theory suggests that the whole reason the quantum world is so weird when we look at it is because of the consciousness that's doing the looking.
Which brings us to the main event, the Dedoxinite framework itself. Now, look, this is still a speculative model for sure, but it's a really serious attempt to build a bridge between mind and matter, to stop treating them as two separate things and start seeing them as fundamentally, deeply intertwined.
This quote from the source paper really just nails the central idea. It's suggesting that all the weirdness we see in quantum physics, particles being in two places at once, spooky action at a distance, that these aren't just random quirks of the universe. They're clues. They're literally breadcrumbs pointing us directly toward the true nature of consciousness.
So you're probably asking, how on earth would that even work? Okay, let's look at the actual blueprint for this thing. The framework is basically built on three really big ideas, three foundational postulates that, if true, would change, pretty much everything.
Okay, let's break this down. First up, this idea of a recursive reality. The theory imagines that our universe is just one layer in a huge infinite stack of realities, and each layer has a different level of clarity or focus, kind of like tuning through different radio stations. Second, it completely redefines consciousness. It says consciousness isn't something our brain makes. Instead, it's a fundamental field, just like gravity or electromagnetism, that permeates everything. Our brains just act like an antenna, tuning into a specific layer. And third, this is how it explains quantum weirdness. A particle in superposition, being in multiple states at once, is actually just information flowing between its versions in all these different layers.
And here is the absolute key to the whole thing, the mathematical bridge that could connect it all, the coherence index. You can think of it as a number, a rating for how in focus or stable a particular layer of reality is. And now, get ready for the most radical part. The theory says this index, this focus knob for reality, is directly tied to the observer's state of mind. So a highly focused, meditative mind might literally tune into a high coherence reality, while a distracted mind tunes into a fuzzy, low coherence one.
I know. This all sounds like pure philosophy. But what makes this whole framework so interesting is that it actually suggests ways it could be tested in a lab. And that is the crucial step, right? That's what could take this from being a cool idea and move it into the realm of actual testable science. So let's see how they think we could do that.
See, the theory doesn't just throw out these huge ideas and walk away. It puts its money where its mouth is. It asks a really direct question. Can we actually design an experiment where a person's thoughts, their mental state, measurably and predictably changes what happens in a quantum experiment.
So here's the proposed setup, and it's pretty brilliant. You take the most famous, most fundamental experiment in all of quantum physics, the double-slit experiment. You have someone observing it, but here's the twist. You've got them hooked up to an EEG or an fMRI to monitor their brain activity. And then you ask them to cycle through different mental states. First, just a normal baseline state. Then, a state of deep, focused meditation. And finally, a state where they are actively distracted.
And this is it. This is the core prediction, the moment of truth. The theory says that when the observer is in that state of deep meditation, that high coherent state, the wave pattern created by the particles should get sharper, clearer, more defined. But when they're distracted in a low coherent state, that very same pattern should get blurry, washed out, and weaker. The implication is just staggering. A focused mind could literally create a more focused physical reality right there in the lab.
I mean, can you imagine if an experiment like this actually worked? It wouldn't just be some weird anomaly. It would be the very first piece of direct, repeatable, measurable evidence that our conscious states have a systematic, predictable effect on the fundamental building blocks of our universe. It would be a complete game changer.
So let's just run with this for a second. Let's imagine this theory, or something like it, turns out to be true. What would that even mean for us? Well, it wouldn't just completely rewrite our science textbooks. It could unlock technologies that right now feel like pure fantasy.
Let's take quantum computing. Right now, the #1 biggest problem we have is something called decoherence. It's basically when our fragile quantum information leaks out and gets lost to the environment. But in this new framework, decoherence isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's just information shifting to another layer of reality. So a recursive quantum computer could actually use that process, intentionally shifting information between layers to do its calculations.
This could lead to computers that are just unbelievably powerful, way beyond anything we can dream of today, with this incredible error correction built right in. Or think about this, cryptography. You could have a new kind of security where the password isn't a string of characters, but the ability to enter a very specific, high-coherent state of mind. To hack it, someone would have to get on your literal mental frequency. Good luck with that.
In the end, whether the Dedoxinite framework turns out to be right, wrong, or somewhere in between, it does something really important. It forces us to look in the mirror and ask a profound question. Are we just living in a static universe that we happen to observe? Or are we part of a participatory reality that we are actively helping to create every single moment? This idea suggests we're not just watching the cosmic movie unfold. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, we are the ones holding the pen. So I'll leave you with that. If our consciousness really does shape reality, what kind of reality are we all choosing to write?